John Martinez rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the screen one more time. The numbers didn't make sense, yet they made perfect sense. For 3 months he had been tracking this strange signal from deep space that nobody else at NASA seemed to care about. They called it background radiation, a glitch in the system, or just random noise. But John knew better. "There's a pattern here," he whispered to himself in the empty monitoring room. The night shift wasn't popular, but John liked the quiet. It gave him time to think without his boss looking over his shoulder. The signal came from a star system, about 40 light-years away. It repeated every 12 hours and 6 minutes exactly. Nature didn't work like that. Nature wasn't that precise. This had to be artificial. John took another sip of his cold coffee and pulled up his personal analysis program. He had written it himself after the official NASA software failed to detect anything unusual. The screen filled with numbers and graphs as the program worked. Then it stopped on a sequence. "Prime numbers," John said, his heart beating faster. "It's a sequence of prime numbers." He grabbed his phone and called Dr. Peterson, his supervisor, not caring that it was 3 a.m. "This better be good, Martinez," Dr. Peterson answered, his voice heavy with sleep. "Sir, I found something. The signal from Sector 47. It's not random. It's a sequence of prime numbers. Someone is trying to communicate." There was a long pause on the other end. "Are you sure?" "Because if you're wrong..." "I'm sure, sir. I've checked it 3 times. This is first contact." The next morning, NASA headquarters was buzzing with activity. Scientists from different departments crowded around John's workstation, asking questions and examining his data. His discovery had made it all the way to the director, who had called an emergency meeting with government officials. John sat in a corner, watching the chaos unfold. He had barely slept, but the excitement kept him awake. He had joined NASA 5 years ago with dreams of making a difference, of finding something extraordinary. Now he had. "Martinez," a voice called. It was Dr. Peterson. "There's someone I want you to meet." A woman stood beside him. She was tall with short brown hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "This is Dr. Lisa Winters," Dr. Peterson said. "She's the best linguist we have. She's going to help us respond to your signal." Lisa offered her hand. "Nice work, Martinez. Not many people would have spotted that pattern." John shook her hand, noticing how firm her grip was. "I just paid attention. The real work starts now." Over the next few days, John and Lisa worked together to develop a response. They decided to use the same mathematical language the signal had used, adding information about Earth's location, human biology, and basic scientific principles. "The trick is to be honest but careful," Lisa explained as they worked late one night. "We want to show we're intelligent, but we don't want to seem threatening." "Do you think they might be dangerous?" John asked. Lisa shrugged. "I don't know, but I think about how humans react to things we don't understand. We're often afraid. They might be too." The message was sent using Earth's most powerful radio telescope. Then they waited. Days passed with no response. John began to worry they had made some mistake, that their message had been too simple or too complex. Then, 2 weeks later, it happened. John was in the cafeteria when the alarms went off. He ran to the control room, pushing through crowds of shocked scientists. "What's happening?" he asked Dr. Peterson, who was staring at the main screen. "Look," was all the older man could say. On the screen was a satellite image of something massive entering Earth's orbit. It was unlike any spacecraft humans had built. It was shaped like a giant leaf, with sections that seemed to shimmer and change color as it moved. "They're here," Lisa whispered, appearing at John's side. They actually came. World leaders quickly assembled an emergency meeting. The alien ship had made no aggressive moves, but military forces around the globe were put on high alert. NASA was instructed to attempt communication using the protocols John and Lisa had developed. 3 days later, John found himself in a secure conference room with Lisa, military officials, and government representatives. A large screen dominated one wall, showing the alien ship now positioned above the Pacific Ocean. "They've responded to our signals," Dr. Peterson announced. "They're requesting to send representatives to speak with us." A general stood up. "This Could be a trick. They could be preparing to attack. I don't think so, Lisa said. Their language patterns suggest curiosity, not aggression. Besides, if they wanted to attack, why announce themselves? After hours of debate, permission was granted. A location was chosen, a remote airfield in Nevada. Security would be tight, but the meeting would happen. John and Lisa were selected to be part of the welcoming committee, along with diplomatic and scientific experts. As they waited on the tarmac, John felt strangely calm. "Aren't you nervous?" Lisa asked. John nodded. "Yes, but also excited. Everything changes today." A small craft detached from the main ship and descended slowly. It landed without a sound, a door opening in its side. 3 figures emerged. They were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift color slightly like oil on water. They had 4 arms and moved with extraordinary grace. Their faces had large expressive eyes and small mouths. They wore no clothing but seemed covered in a thin, metallic film. One of them stepped forward and spoke. The sound was musical, rising, and falling in complex patterns. A translator device they had sent ahead of time converted their speech. "We are the Veldari," the voice said. "We come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Conquered. We detected your signal and came to investigate." The lead human diplomat stepped forward and welcomed them to Earth. The Veldari looked around, with obvious interest. "We visited this planet many centuries ago," they said. "We found only simple organisms. We did not expect to find an advanced civilization. You have developed quickly." John looked at Lisa, who seemed just as surprised. "We serve as diplomats for the Conquered," the Veldari continued. "Our coalition includes 27 civilizations across this sector of the galaxy. We extend greetings to humanity." "Thank you," the human diplomat replied. "We are honored." The Veldari's eyes focused on the group. "Your message showed intelligence and restraint. The Conquered will be interested in learning more about your species." As the formal introductions continued, John felt a strange mix of pride and unease. Humanity had just taken its first step onto a much larger stage. What would the galaxy think of them? Would they be welcomed as equals or seen as primitive newcomers? One thing was certain: the universe now knew that humans existed, and soon they would discover exactly what humans were capable of. 2 weeks after the arrival of the Veldari, Earth was still buzzing with excitement and fear. News channels showed nothing but the alien ship hovering above the Pacific Ocean. Religious leaders debated what it meant for their beliefs. Military forces remained on high alert, despite the Veldari showing no signs of aggression. John Martinez sat in a large meeting room at the United Nations building in New York, feeling out of place among world leaders and top scientists. Lisa Winters sat beside him, reviewing notes on her tablet. "I still can't believe we're here," John whispered. Lisa smiled. "You started this, John. You found the signal when no one else was looking." The room fell silent as the Veldari representatives entered. Today, they wore simple silver robes, perhaps an attempt to appear more relatable to humans. The lead Veldari, who had introduced itself as Ilara, stepped forward. "We have communicated with the Galactic Conquered," Ilara said, its voice translated smoothly. "They are interested in learning more about humanity. The Conquered extends an invitation for Earth to send representatives to the Central Assembly." Gasps and whispers filled the room. The President of the United States stood up. "We are honored by this invitation," she said. "But what exactly would this visit entail?" Ilara's skin rippled with blue patterns, which they had learned indicated pleasure or approval. "You would travel on our vessel to the Central Assembly, located near what you call the Orion Nebula. The journey takes 7 days using our fold technology. There you would meet representatives from other member species and present information about Earth and humanity." "And then what?" asked the Chinese premier. "The Conquered would evaluate humanity's potential for membership," Ilara replied. "This is standard procedure for all new species we encounter." Debate raged for days about who should go. Every country wanted representation. Scientists argued they should be included. Military leaders insisted on security personnel. In the end, A small team was selected. John Martinez for discovering the signal, Dr. Lisa Winters for her linguistic expertise, Captain Frank Howard from the United States Air Force, and Dr. Samantha Miller, a brilliant physicist whose theories on dimensional folding might help humans understand the aliens' travel technology. The day of departure arrived with little fanfare. The 4 humans were taken to a secure location where a small Veldari shuttle waited. Their families had said goodbye the night before. Each representative carried only one bag with personal items and data drives filled with information about Earth. "Welcome," Ilara greeted them. "The journey will be comfortable, though you may experience some disorientation during fold travel." The inside of the shuttle was larger than it appeared from outside. The walls were smooth and pearly, with light coming from everywhere and nowhere. There were no visible controls or screens, yet the ship hummed with energy. As they left Earth's atmosphere, John looked back at the blue planet growing smaller. "It looks so peaceful from here," he said. "All worlds do, from a distance," Ilara replied. The details and conflicts blur into harmony. During the journey, the humans learned more about the Galactic Concord. It had existed for over 20,000 years, expanding gradually as new species achieved space travel. The Veldari were among the oldest members, having joined 15,000 years ago. "Your species is unusual," Ilara told them as they gathered, in what served as a dining area. "Most take millions of years to evolve from primitive tools to space travel. Humans did it in mere thousands." "Is that a problem?" Captain Howard asked, his military training making him alert to potential threats. "It is noteworthy," Ilara said carefully. "Some in the Concord find rapid advancement concerning. It suggests unpredictability." Samantha leaned forward. "But isn't innovation a good thing? Progress? Progress at what cost?" Ilara's skin rippled with patterns they hadn't seen before. "Your history is filled with destruction. You developed nuclear weapons before you fully understood their consequences. You altered your climate before developing ways to repair it. We make mistakes," Lisa admitted, "but we learn from them." "Sometimes," Ilara said, "we shall see what the assembly thinks." On the 7th day, they emerged from fold travel near a massive structure, unlike anything they had imagined. It wasn't a planet or a moon, but a constructed world, a sphere the size of Earth's moon, with sections that moved and rotated around a bright central core. "The Central Assembly," Ilara announced, "home to representatives from 27 species in the heart of the Concord." As their shuttle approached, they saw thousands of ships of different designs moving in perfect coordination. Some were small like theirs, others massive city ships that dwarfed anything humans had built. They docked at one of many ports and were led through wide corridors filled with alien species. Some walked on multiple legs, others floated or rolled. The humans tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to feel overwhelmed. Their quarters were comfortable but simple, 4 rooms connected to a common area. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, and the air had a sweet scent they couldn't identify. "You will rest today," Ilara told them. "Tomorrow, you will be formally introduced to the assembly." That night, none of them slept well. John stood by the window watching the strange stars. "What do you think they really want from us?" Frank asked, joining him. "I don't know," John replied, "but I got the feeling Ilara wasn't telling us everything." The next day, they dressed in their best clothes and were escorted to an enormous chamber. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform. Most were filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. The humans felt very small and very alone. A tall, willowy being with crystalline features approached them. "I am Thalos. Hi, Speaker of the Assembly. Welcome to the conquered humans of Earth." The introduction ceremony was elaborate. Each species sent a representative to greet them with their own customs. Some bowed, others made musical sounds or released scents. The humans did their best to respond appropriately, following Lisa's careful guidance. When it was their turn to speak, Lisa stepped forward as their chosen spokesperson. "People of the Galactic Concord," she began. "We come from Earth, 3rd planet, from our sun. We are young as a spacefaring species, but eager to learn and share. We bring greetings of peace and friendship." As Lisa continued her speech, Samantha noticed something odd. Several of the alien representatives were making gestures to each other. Though she couldn't understand their meaning, the pattern seemed clear. They were evaluating, judging. Later, at a reception with food and drink suitable for different species, Samantha pulled the others aside. "Did you notice how they were watching us?" she whispered. "This isn't just a welcome, we're being tested." "Tested for what?" John asked. "I don't know," Frank said grimly. "But I think we better find out what they really think of humans, and fast." 3 months passed on the Central Assembly. The human team settled into a routine of meetings, tours, and presentations about Earth. They met representatives from many species and learned about worlds they had never imagined. But beneath the friendly surface, they sensed growing tension. Captain Frank Howard walked quickly through the curved hallways, his face serious. He had spent the morning in what the aliens called a cultural exchange. In reality, a thinly disguised interview about human military history. He didn't like the questions they asked. He found the others in their common room. John was studying a star chart. Lisa was practicing an alien language on her tablet. And Samantha was writing equations on a clear board. "We need to talk," Frank said, closing the door. "I overheard something troubling." The others looked up, instantly alert. "I was leaving the military archives section when I heard 2 representatives talking. They didn't know I was there." Frank took a deep breath. "The Concord is planning to restrict humans to our solar system. They think we're too unpredictable and aggressive to be allowed free travel rights." "What?" Samantha stood up. "They can't do that." "Apparently they can," Frank replied. "They've done it before with other species they deemed concerning." Lisa frowned. "Did they say when this decision would be made?" "Next week. There's going to be a vote in the assembly." John had been quiet, but now he spoke. "So that's why they invited us here. Not to welcome us, but to study us up close before they lock us in our own system." The room fell silent as they absorbed this news. Earth had been celebrating the contact with alien life, planning for technological exchanges and new opportunities. No one had considered that the Conquered might see humans as a threat. "We need to change their minds," Samantha said. "Show them we're not dangerous." "How?" Frank asked. "It sounds like they've already decided." John had moved to the data terminal, in the corner. He was searching through the information the Veldari had provided about Concord laws and customs. "Wait," he said suddenly. "There might be a way. It's called the Trials of Aptitude." The others gathered around as John explained what he'd found. The trials were an ancient tradition, a series of challenges designed to test a new species' capabilities and character. If a species passed the trials, they earned full rights in the Concord. "No one has successfully completed the trials in over 4,000 years, John said. "Most species don't even try. But if we did, they would have to give us a fair chance." Lisa finished. "The laws say so." The next day they formally requested to undertake the Trials of Aptitude. The announcement caused a stir in the assembly. Most representatives seemed shocked, some amused. Thalos, the High Speaker, tried to talk them out of it. "The trials are extremely difficult," he warned. "They will test you to your limits and beyond. There is no shame in accepting protected status within your own system." "We understand the risks," John replied firmly. "But humans don't accept limits placed on us by others. We want the chance to prove ourselves." 3 days later, the human team stood in a vast chamber with representatives from 5 other species who had recently joined the Conquered. All would participate in the first trial, though the aliens clearly expected the humans to fail quickly. Thalos addressed them from a floating platform. "The first trial tests intelligence and problem-solving. Before you is a puzzle that has challenged the greatest minds in the galaxy." In the center of the room stood what looked like a cube made of shifting, translucent material. As they watched, it changed shape, expanding into complex patterns before collapsing back. "You must identify the pattern governing its changes and predict its final form," Thalos explained. "You have 6 hours." The other teams immediately began working with advanced devices, measuring and calculating. The humans had only simple tools provided by the conquered. It's not just changing shape, Lisa said after watching for several minutes. The colors are changing too, in a specific sequence. They divided tasks. Lisa tracked the color changes. Samantha measured the mathematical properties of each transformation. Frank identified structural patterns, and John looked for connections between all these elements. 4 hours passed. 2 teams had already given up. The humans kept working. It's language, Lisa suddenly said. The shapes are forming symbols like letters, but in multiple dimensions. And the colors represent tonal shifts, John added, seeing the pattern now. It's telling a story. Once they understood this, the solution came quickly. The puzzle wasn't just mathematical, it was cultural. It told an ancient legend from the early days of the Concord about cooperation between different species. With minutes to spare, they submitted their prediction for the final form, a complex shape representing unity and diversity. When the time ended, Thalos activated a control. The cube shifted one last time, taking exactly the form the humans had predicted. A murmur of surprise ran through the watching crowd. The humans have passed the first trial, Thalos announced, unable to hide his surprise. In their quarters that evening, the team celebrated cautiously. 1 down, but that was just the beginning, Frank reminded them. The next ones will be harder. Dio, at least they're taking us seriously now, Samantha said. Did you see their faces? The second trial came 2 days later. It tested physical endurance and adaptability. The humans were at a clear disadvantage compared to species with greater strength, multiple limbs, or natural armor. The challenge took place in a massive chamber with changing environments, from scorching heat to freezing cold, high gravity to low, even sections with different atmospheric compositions. You must retrieve 5 markers placed throughout the course, Thalos explained. You may work together or separately. The other teams raced ahead, their bodies better suited to the extreme conditions, but the humans had their own advantages. We need to be smarter, not stronger, Frank said. He had been a survival expert before joining the military. Conserve energy. Plan each move. Instead of charging through like the others, they studied the course layout. They worked as a team, helping each other through difficult sections, finding shortcuts using tools creatively. When one section became too hot for their protective suits, John suggested they create a heat shield from materials they found along the way. When gravity increased to crushing levels, they built a simple lever system to move forward. One by one, the other teams either failed or gave up. The humans kept going, slower but steadier. After 15 grueling hours, they collected the final marker. As they stumbled back to the starting point, exhausted but successful, the watching aliens were silent. Then one began a rhythmic tapping sound that others joined, their version of applause. The humans have passed the second trial, Thalos announced. His tone had changed. There was respect there now, and perhaps a hint of concern. Later, as they recovered in their quarters, a message arrived from Alara. You have surprised many in the assembly, the Veldari wrote. Some are impressed, others are worried. Be careful, in the final trial tomorrow. Not everyone wishes to see humans succeed. John looked at his teammates. What does that mean? It means we've got their attention, Frank said grimly. And not all of it is good. The day of the final trial arrived. Word had spread through the Central Assembly about the humans' unexpected success. Crowds of aliens filled the observation areas, eager to see if these strange newcomers could complete the challenge that had stopped so many before. John Martinez woke early, his sleep troubled by dreams of Earth. He missed the blue sky, the sound of rain, even the crowded streets of his hometown. If they failed today, humanity might remain forever isolated from the wider galaxy. Lisa Winters was already awake, studying information about the final trial. It's a rescue simulation, she told the others when they gathered. We have to enter a damaged space station, find survivors, and activate an emergency beacon. That sounds straightforward enough, Frank said cautiously. What's the catch? Time pressure, extreme conditions, and physical obstacles, Lisa replied. and we'll be competing against the two other teams that passed the second trial. Samantha looked concerned. Both those species are physically superior to us. The Drex have that armored skin, and the Vorax can breathe in almost any atmosphere. True, Frank nodded. But we've got something they don't have. What's that? John asked. Frank grinned. Human stubbornness. They arrived at the testing chamber to find a massive structure suspended in the center, a replica of a space station torn apart by some disaster. Parts of it were visibly damaged, with sections exposed to vacuum. Inside, holographic figures represented trapped crew members needing rescue. Thalos explained the rules. You must navigate the station, locate the survivors, and activate the emergency beacon at the central hub. The station's systems are failing. You have 3 hours before complete shutdown. The Drex team looked confident with their thick gray skin and powerful limbs. The Vorax, tall beings with multiple breathing organs, seemed equally sure of victory. Remember, John told his team quietly, we've faced challenges all our life on Earth. We're used to adapting. That's our strength. The signal to begin came, and all 3 teams entered the station through different airlocks. The humans immediately noticed the increasing heat. The station's cooling systems were failing. We need to find the environmental controls first, Frank suggested. If we can restore some cooling, it will make everything else easier. They moved carefully through the damaged corridors, helping each other over obstacles and checking each room for survivors. Through the windows, they could see the Drex team charging ahead, breaking through barriers with their strength rather than finding ways around. They're wasting energy, Samantha observed. This is a marathon, not a sprint. After 20 minutes, they located the environmental control room. While Lisa and Frank searched for survivors, John and Samantha worked to restore basic cooling to the main corridors they would need to travel. Got it, Samantha said as the temperature began to drop. Not perfect, but better. They found their first survivor, a holographic crew member trapped under fallen equipment. It took all 4 of them working together to free it. As they moved deeper into the station, they encountered more serious damage. One section was exposed to vacuum, the next filled with simulated radiation. We need to find another way, Lisa said, studying the station layout on a damaged terminal. Wait, Frank said, looking closer at the radiation section. Our suits can handle short exposure. If we move quickly enough. That's too dangerous, John argued. Sometimes saving lives means risking your own, Frank replied. It's the fastest. Route to the central hub. The others will go around, which takes longer. After a brief debate, they agreed. They adjusted their suits for maximum protection and moved as quickly as possible through the radiation zone, keeping to the areas with the lowest levels. Even so, their suit alarms beeped warnings as they reached the other side. Halfway through the trial, they had rescued 4 survivors and were making good progress. Then disaster struck. The station's core began an overload sequence, with warnings blaring throughout the structure. That wasn't part of the scenario, Lisa shouted over the noise. It is now, Frank replied grimly. Change of plans. John, you and Lisa get the survivors to the escape pods. Samantha and I will head for the central hub. As John and Lisa led the rescued holograms to safety, Samantha and Frank raced toward the hub. The station shook around them as systems failed. Emergency bulkheads began closing automatically, threatening to cut off their route. They reached the central hub to find it in chaos. Displays showed critical system failures throughout the station. The emergency beacon was there, but activating it wouldn't matter if the station exploded. The core overload, Samantha said, examining the controls. I think I can stabilize it, temporarily. How? Frank asked, securing the room. The principles are similar to my dimensional folding theory, she explained, already working on the system. If I can create a containment field around the core, it will buy us time. While Samantha worked on the core, Frank activated the emergency beacon. Through the windows, they could see the other teams had also reached the hub through different routes. The Drex looked exhausted, their speed advantage lost in the complex navigation. The Vorax had rescued fewer survivors, having prioritized reaching the beacon first. Core stabilized, Samantha announced. But it won't last long. Beacon activated, Frank confirmed. Now we need to get out of here. The station's final evacuation alert sounded. All teams headed for the escape pods, bringing their rescued survivors. The humans had found 7, more than either of the other teams. As they reached the escape pods, they found a Drex crew member trapped behind a sealed door. The Drex team had already left, either not seeing or not waiting for their teammate. "We can't leave him," John said. "Our pod is already at capacity with the survivors," Frank pointed out. John looked at the others. No words were needed. They knew what they had to do. They worked quickly to override the door. When it finally opened, they helped the Drex to their escape pod, making room by leaving some of their emergency supplies behind. The pods launched just as the station's core containment failed. From the safety of their pod, they watched the simulated explosion light up the testing chamber. When they returned to the starting area, Thalos was waiting. For the first time, the high speaker looked genuinely impressed. "All teams successfully activated the beacon," he announced. "But the humans rescued, the most survivors, including a member of another team. They also temporarily stabilized the core, preventing immediate destruction." The watching crowd made their tapping applause sound, louder than before. "The humans have passed the final trial," Thalos declared. "They have earned the right to present their case to the full assembly." As they left the testing chamber, exhausted but triumphant, an aide approached with an urgent message. "The High Council requests your presence immediately. There has been an unexpected development." The human team followed the aide through unfamiliar corridors of the Central Assembly. They were still wearing their trial suits, dirty and damaged from their ordeal. "What's happening?" John asked the aide, who moved with obvious urgency. "Security. Breach," the aide replied without slowing down. "A group has infiltrated the assembly." They reached a secure area where Thalos and other high-ranking officials had gathered. The high speaker looked troubled. "We face an unexpected crisis," Thalos told them. "A faction called the Purists has attacked several key areas of the assembly. They oppose adding new species to the Concord, especially ones they consider unpredictable." "Like humans," Lisa said, understanding immediately. "Yes. They learned of your success in the trials and accelerated their plans." Thalos gestured to screens showing chaos in different parts of the massive structure. "They've taken hostages and damaged communication systems." "What do you want from us?" Frank asked directly. "Nothing. You should remain here in safety until our security forces resolve the situation." Thalos turned away to speak with his advisors. The humans exchanged glances. Without words, they understood each other after their months together. "High Speaker," John called. "We want to help." Thalos looked surprised. "This is not your conflict. We're part of the assembly now," Frank said firmly. "Or we will be. Either way, we don't hide when people need help." After brief hesitation, Thalos agreed. "Very well. Our most urgent concern is the medical center. Many wounded are trapped there, including several council members who were meeting when the attack began." The team quickly formed a plan. With communications down in many areas, they would have to rely on their own skills and whatever tools they could find. They were given basic weapons, energy stunners that would incapacitate without killing. As they made their way through the assembly, they saw signs of the attack. Damaged sections, frightened beings from various species hiding in secure rooms, emergency systems activated. "Remember," Frank warned as they approached the medical center, "we want to help, not escalate the situation." Outside the medical center, they encountered their first Purists, tall, reptilian beings with enhanced cybernetic implants. 2 guards lay unconscious nearby. "We need a distraction," Frank whispered. John nodded and moved to a control panel. Using what he had learned about assembly systems, he triggered an emergency alert in a different section. When 2 Purists went to investigate, the humans quickly subdued the remaining guard and entered the medical center. Inside, they found a scene of tension. 3 Purists held several medical staff and patients hostage, including 2 injured council members. One of them was the High Speaker who had opposed humanity's admission to the Concord during the trials. "Stay back," one purist warned, pointing a weapon at the hostages. Samantha stepped forward, hands raised. We just want to talk. There is nothing to discuss. The conquered has grown weak, adding unworthy species like yours. Then tell me why, Samantha said calmly. Help me understand your concerns. The purist seemed surprised by this approach. While Samantha kept him talking, the others gradually moved into better positions around the room. Your kind develops too quickly, without wisdom to match your technology, the purist leader said. You will bring destruction to the conquered. You might be right about how quickly we develop, Samantha acknowledged, but you're wrong about destruction being our goal. We want to learn, to grow, to cooperate. As she spoke, John noticed a young medical assistant hiding behind equipment. He caught her eye and motioned to the environmental controls. She nodded slightly. Humans have a history of conflict, yes, Samantha continued. But we've learned from it. We understand the value of peace better because we know the cost of war. Suddenly the lights went out as the medical assistant cut power to that section. In the darkness, the humans moved quickly. Frank and John subdued two purists while Lisa helped the hostages move to safety. When emergency lighting came on, Samantha stood face to face with the purist leader, who had a weapon pointed at her. You could shoot me, Samantha said quietly, but that would only prove you're what you accuse us of being, violent and dangerous. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then the purist lowered his weapon. As security forces arrived to take the purists into custody, the team helped medical staff treat the injured. John found himself assisting with the wounded council member who had opposed humanity. Why are you helping me? The alien asked weakly. I voted against your species. That's what humans do, John replied simply. We help people who need it, even if we disagree with them. The council member fell silent watching John work. Hours later, the crisis was over. The purists had been captured, their plan to overthrow the conquered leadership foiled. The human team was called to an emergency session of the full assembly. The great chamber was packed with representatives from all 27 species. Thalos stood at the center, his voice carrying to all corners. Today we witnessed not only an attack on our assembly, but also the true nature of humanity, he began. These 4 humans, still exhausted from their trials, voluntarily placed themselves in danger to help others, including those who had judged them harshly. The wounded council member stepped forward, moving slowly but with determination. I opposed granting humans full rights within the conquered, the council member admitted. I believed their rapid advancement and history of conflict made them dangerous. Today I saw that same capacity for action directed toward saving lives, including my own. One by one, other representatives spoke. Some described how the humans had helped during the crisis, showing courage, creativity, and compassion. Others mentioned the trials, where the humans had succeeded through teamwork and determination rather than superior strength or technology. Finally, Thalos called for a vote. The result was clear. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Concord, with all rights to travel, trade, and settle throughout conquered space. This is not just because you completed the trials, Thalos explained after the vote. It is because of how you completed them and how you acted during our crisis. You showed us something we had not expected. Later, as the team prepared for their return journey to Earth with the good news, they stood together at an observation window overlooking the galaxy. I still can't believe it, Lisa said. We came here expecting to be judged, maybe even restricted. Now we're full members. We earned it, Frank replied. John smiled, thinking of the signal he had discovered months ago that started this journey. You know what's funny? They thought they were studying us, but we were showing them who we really are the whole time. Samantha looked out at the stars, now open to humanity in a way they had never been before. That's the real trial we passed, not the puzzles or the physical challenges, but showing the universe what humans are truly capable of. And what's that? Lisa asked. John answered simply, becoming better than we were yesterday. As their ship prepared for departure, news of humanity's acceptance spread throughout the conquered. The story of 4 humans who had changed the galaxy's perception of an entire species would be told for generations to come. And on Earth, People looked to the stars with new understanding. They were no longer alone in the universe. The journey ahead would be challenging, but as humans had always done, they would face it together, ready to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of.